So homes actually selling in 2026, we're about to hit the fourth year with super low transactions. Now, when you ask most people, why is this happening? They're gonna say it's interest rates being high. They're gonna blame high prices. They're gonna blame the economy. But the real pressure point is actually something that might surprise you: falling rents. And a lot of people are gonna say there's a lot of buyers on the sidelines. But what's causing a lot of buyers to stay on the sidelines? Today, I'm gonna show you how declining rents are actually reshaping the Arizona real estate market, and why this matters a lot if you're thinking about selling your house. So across Arizona, sellers are noticing a similar pattern. Homes are sitting longer on the market. Listings are not getting any showings. If they're getting showings, they're not getting any offers. And if they're getting any offers, they're super lowball offers. So naturally, frustration sets in. And because of that frustration, many sellers are doing what we call rage quitting the market. So sellers will pull their listing, put the home up for rent, hoping that renting it out will stop the financial bleeding until the market is better next year. And if you think about it, that actually makes a lot of sense. But here's something sellers still haven't realized. When a large number of sellers decide to rent instead of selling their home, it actually floods the rental market. So more rental supply leads to lower rents. Lower rents make renting more attractive than buying, and that normally keeps first-time home buyers on the sidelines. Think about it like this. The housing market is like a well-oiled machine. First-time home buyers purchase starter homes, then those sellers move to larger homes, and then eventually those people that bought those bigger homes decide to downsize once they become empty nesters. But when the first-time home buyers decide to take a break because renting is a lot more attractive than buying, the whole chain breaks. No first-time home buyers means no move-up buyers, and that's when listings start to pile up. Here's the whole irony of the situation. Sellers are renting because the market is not very good right now and they're not getting the price they want. But by actually renting rather than selling, that might actually make future prices drop even more. More rentals means lower rents, less buyer demand, more pressure on home values. So waiting it out doesn't always work the way people expect. Now before, people used to say, what's the value of renting over buying? And normally you were comparing like a 2-bedroom apartment to a 3-bedroom home. And that's just like comparing apples to oranges. But in the last year or so, I've been noticing a specific pattern where sellers that are not getting the price they want are getting desperate. So they're actually doing both. They're listing their home for rent and also listing it for sale. And that's when you can actually really compare what it will cost you to rent that house over actually buying the house. So let me show you exactly what I mean. I'm gonna pull up a couple listings in the MLS and show you the difference between renting it over buying it. I'm gonna actually break down how much you would have to put down, what will be your monthly payment. And what I'm noticing, a lot of these differences are anywhere between $700 to like $1,500. Now, if you're finding this information really helpful, please click on the like button and subscribe. All right, guys, so what we're gonna do in this video is we're gonna break down what people were trying to sell their house for, how much the payment would be, and just using an estimate, and then what it actually rented for. Again, we're comparing oranges to oranges. Instead of comparing different homes that rented to other homes that are trying to sell, we're comparing the same house, which is something that, it was rare back in the days. Now we can see it very clearly. So first, I wanted to ask ChatGPT what the average credit score is in the US. It said around 715. So we're going to use that to get average rates. And the average rate for an FHA loan currently is anywhere between 5.4 and 5.9 with that kind of credit score. So let's first look at this house that I was looking at here. So this house rented out for $1,900. They were actually trying to rent it for around $2,300. Couldn't get what they wanted, so they kept dropping, or somebody came in and said, hey, I'll rent it for $1,900, which you can definitely negotiate with prices of rentals. Now we look at the history here, you can see that they tried selling it for $424,000 and it didn't sell. They ended up just canceling after 17 days. Maybe didn't get any showings at all, not sure. Or maybe just decided to keep it as an investment. But let's look at a breakdown. What would be the difference between buying this house at that price with an FHA loan with 3.5% down, or actually renting it out? So I did the math already on this one, and the payment will come out to $2,743.90. So what I did is I used a 3.5% down payment as an FHA, then 5.5. I was trying to be more in the middle. It doesn't always, to get the lowest FHA, a lot of times you're buying points. I use the exact taxes that are reported on that listing, and insurance around $1,700 a year here in Arizona. So that's what gave me that difference. And you're talking about a difference of almost $900. So are most people going to see value in paying, almost $900 more for that house over renting it? Or are they going to see the value in renting it? Now, as a real estate agent, obviously I see the value in people owning property. I mean, I've seen people that otherwise wouldn't have any money in savings or maybe just a couple thousand sell their house and end up with 200,000, buy another house, put a down payment, have no PMI, and then still use the rest of the money as an investment. And now they have their own business. Let's look at a couple more examples. So this is in a little bit of higher price range. So they were able to get $2,395 for this house. I mean, as you can see, has a beautiful patio, has a really nice pool. But let's look at how much they were trying to sell it for. So they were trying to get $460,000. The rent actually is not that bad. This is in Glendale area, close to Peoria. It's like northern Phoenix area or northern Glendale area. So obviously it's a little bit more higher end. So rents, there's better schools in the area, so you will be able to get higher rent. So let's just compare how much they would have gotten, or how much the payment would have been for somebody if they would have bought this house. So 460. Okay, taxes on this house is actually pretty low. Let's say insurance is going to be more. There's a pool. It's a bigger house, 2-story. So you're looking at $3,026. So when you compare it to how much they got for rent, I mean, there's a big difference. It's not as big as the other house, but still, it's around a $600 difference. Now, are some people going to see value in paying $600 more? I think so. Because of the quality of the neighborhoods, the quality of the house, schools, area. So paying a premium for somebody to know that they're going to have stability for their family, that they're not just going to all of a sudden get their rents hiked 20%, like a lot of people went through the last couple of years, knowing that their kids are going to be able to attend school, that they're not going to get priced out when it comes to rent and all of a sudden move to a neighborhood that is a lower price just because they can't afford the rent there, and all of a sudden now they have to go to lower quality schools or schools with a lower rating. That some people will see the value in that. So the thing is that you're not going to see a lot of first-time home buyers go to these bigger homes where the payment's going to be $3,000 a month, especially if they could pay less. So because of that, you're going to have less demand, and you have to take that into consideration when selling your house. Again, you have to make your house be the obvious choice so that if a person looks in the neighborhood and sees your house and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to pay, $400 to $600 more for this house, I'm willing to do that. All right, guys, so let's look at this one. This one is in Phoenix area, almost about to get to Avondale. So they rented this house for a little bit less, $1,875, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It's a smaller house. And again, this is going to be something that is going to be appealing to like a younger family. Now let's look at what they were trying to get for it. So they're trying to get $380,000. So I guess this kind of makes sense for, what we're seeing with some of the starter home prices here in Phoenix or in the, West Valley. A breakdown of what the payment would be on this one. So let's change it to 380. We're still doing the 3.5%. A lot of these houses fall within the FHA guidelines. So, we should be able to be using a good example, 5.5 interest rate. Again, we're using average credit score. I'm not saying that this is the rate you're going to get, but we're using average credit score. And let's look at taxes. 1,305. Oops. Okay, insurance is going to be lower on these homes because they're a little bit smaller. $2,476.96. So you're probably looking at a difference of around $600, which is very similar to the other house we were looking at in North Phoenix, but those are going to be two different type of buyers. People that are buying in those more expensive areas usually already owned a house, sold it, got some equity, and are buying another house. Or move-up buyers. So or people with really high, or high earners. So $600 is not going to hurt their pocket as much as a young family, and they're going to have to pay 25% more to buy it over renting it. I mean, that's a huge difference, 25%. So again, we are going back to, what somebody would say, is it worth buying? So let's say this 380 home was 350 instead of that. Let's see how much that would affect the payment. So you're looking at 2,300. Now there's not that huge of a difference because one, you're building equity because you're paying down the mortgage. You're hopefully getting equity here in the next couple of years. Might take 10 years to actually have a decent amount of equity, but it's your house. And again, you're not going to get priced out if rents start going up here in the next couple of years. We are seeing rents go down here in Phoenix, but we don't know how long that's going to last. We don't know if that's a trend that is going to continue, or it's because we're adjusting to a lot of the overbuilding of apartment complexes, a lot of people that are rage quitting the market and putting their homes for rent. And maybe that switches, maybe that changes. We don't know. It could take a couple years to see that. But for now, 350,000 makes a lot more sense for somebody to buy this house than to rent it, especially if we could get like a bigger buy down from the seller that is willing to give us a higher credit. And that's where we see a lot of the neighborhoods that are actually or homes that are actually selling. The seller is a lot more willing and capable to provide a bigger credit. So then it would make more sense for people to say, okay, yeah, I don't know what if my tenant's gonna increase my rent next year, so I might as well just buy. There's a difference of what, $400 approximately. So that's definitely worth it, having that peace of mind. All right, so now we're gonna look at this last example. Again, it's gonna be a very similar price range. And the reason I focus a lot more in starter homes or these lower price homes is that these are the ones that are mostly out there for rent. And you're gonna see it all throughout the valley. And it affects first-time home buyers. And the problem is that if we see this issue with first-time home buyers, these first-time home buyers are not able to buy those homes for people that wanna move up. And then those people that wanna move up that are selling their house right now want to get a bigger house, and then at the end of the line there's always a empty nester that would like to downsize and get rid. So now we're going back, that the whole cycle goes back to those starter homes. We always see that competition, right? We're talking about people downsizing and first-time home buyers. But if we don't have those first-time home buyers, it does, throw a monkey wrench into that well-oiled machine. So let's look at this one. This one's actually not that bad of a deal. So it rents it for 1,850. Again, 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 1,236 square feet. And they were trying to sell it for 355,000. So going back to that example where it makes a little bit more sense, taxes here. Let me look at the taxes really quick. So 1,109. So it makes a lot more sense. Let me see here. Was it three? It was right. 1,109. Yep. That was 355. It's a very small house. So let's drop the homeowner's insurance. So again, the payment's going to be 2,305. So you're talking about a difference of, $450. Again, it makes more sense. However, to be honest, I think the issue with this house is that it was pretty outdated. It has nice clean floors or nice updated floors, but the kitchen's outdated. The house is not the type of home that people really go for. It's the ones with the entrance like on the side. It's a little odd. They were building a lot of those, maybe the last 20 years or, 20 years ago, but they really don't build those houses anymore. But it's just not a popular model, but the price wasn't that bad compared to what the rent was going for. So I think if they just would have maybe adjusted the price a little bit more, they would have gotten closer to, or at least entice somebody to come and buy this house and pay almost similar for rent, or a little bit closer to rent as it would have paid for their mortgage. It would have made sense for a lot more buyers. But I think the thing is the type of house, maybe they didn't do the right marketing. It just doesn't really look very nice on the picture. So, but yeah, this is just to give you an example, guys. I think a lot of people that are out there selling, they need to put themselves in the buyer's shoes. What are they looking for? And what's holding people back from actually putting an offer in my house? And that would give you a better chance of success and actually selling your house. Now, if you decide to keep your house as an investment because you bought it back in 2015, then you refinance it with a 2.5 interest rate, and your cash flow is like $1,000, hey, that makes total sense. More power to you. But if you're doing it out of just a reaction, just thinking that if you wait another year, the market's gonna be better, and maybe you're only cash flowing 30,000 and you're hoping to net 60,000, you might actually be hurting yourself, because if you have to put it back in the market next year, you might be going into an even softer market. So let me share a couple stories of people that I've talked to recently that actually did this a year ago, and now they're having to go back into the market that is softer from a year ago because they looked for tenants because they couldn't get the price they wanted. The tenants made a mess in the house. Now they got to spend like $20,000 to fix the kitchen, paint the house, do all kinds of things to make it look nice again, and they're going into a softer market. And I think a lot of people are going to end up in that situation. So if you're thinking about selling and you want a real plan and not just guesswork, hit the link below and set up a 30-minute Zoom call so we can put a plan together specific to your situation. This is Juan Ramirez, and I'll see you on the next one.